Hello, I'm Tam the Tam BOTC channel, and I want to talk about just something I thought interesting. Usually, just interesting ideas pop into my head, and I talk about them. So I thought, hey, let's talk about like maybe what's my favorite Elder Scrolls campaign. I mostly know Morrowind through Skyrim. Daggerfall and Arena, I kind of escaped my brain. So maybe I should talk a little bit about online as well, but honestly, I don't remember much other than you're trying to defeat Molag Bal. And I remember some of the famous, there's some famous stars, Michael Gavin's a prophet or whatever, and Malcolm McDowell is Molag Bal. Um, Jennifer Hale is the half giant. I can't remember her name though. There's a couple of famous actors. I think Alfred Molina also plays a character as well as I'm trying to remember the actor's name. He plays he plays Gantu, I believe, in the frickin' Lilo and Stitch stuff. That's like what I know him most for. But he's also played a ton of other characters like the Joker and the Batman animated series. Not to be confused with the Batman movie. He's the villain of the first Baldur's Gate, and he's even in. He hasn't played. He returned to play that character though for some reason. But his name is escaping my head. I was just talking about him the other day when it comes to frickin' actors that play a frick ton of characters and stuff, and he was the one that came to mind when I was talking to my friend Dave, and now I'm just drawing a blank for some reason. Anyways, yeah, I don't really care for ESO's story if I'm being honest. I guess some of the DLC stories are all right, but it's hard to really recall those. I think because there's so much going on and so much they throw at you in ESO because it has to be a big MMO, you kind of find the stories a little bit more forgettable or you're just not able to cling on to them as much, which is weird because you can cling on to like side quests and stuff as well as main stories of the other Elder Scrolls games. So I don't understand how that is. I think it's just that it's overwhelming because it's not only got a million freaking side quests, but it's got a million big stories going on as well at this point. So it's harder to cling to anything specifically. Though, uh, if you think about like World of Warcraft, I think people can kind of cling and remember stuff more easily there. I kind of more remember stuff up to either the Burning Crusade or what's the one with the pandas? Uh, I stopped playing after the pandas thing, but I hear they brought like vanilla back and all that. I don't know. This is not really part of the subject at hand. Probably part of the reason I originally discovered Asmongold. But because there's been a lot of Asmongold stuff I had on the channel recently because of the thing I decided to talk about or chose to talk about. But yeah, let's start with Morrowind. Should I start with Morrowind? Honestly, sorry if I draw a blank there. I'm also surprised I don't have much. So with Oblivion, Oblivion's my weakest, honestly. I had to actually look up the names of the villains. You got frickin' Mankar Cameron, and he's actually played by an actor that sadly passed recently, General Zod himself. And then you got Mehrunes Dagon, I believe. Yeah, I know that frickin' Daedric Prince. Yes, for some reason, when I have to remember him for Oblivion, I almost forget his frickin' name. I also don't know why my screen is going dark on here. But other than the Mankar Cameron stuff, which is actually really interesting, when you get to that world, Daedric world he's created, and he's like giving you a bunch of like backstory and stuff, or talking about himself and such, as well as like his plans. It is very interesting stuff. That's where I feel like the story's at its strongest for me. I can see like of course you got great performances, Patrick Stewart and Sean Bean. I don't know. There's just a lot of dead air in between, though, that like I just don't remember the story very well, and it's not the one I replay the most of them. I just find that I'm more enjoy in the side quests and stuff. It's my least favorite of the stories, um, but I wouldn't say it's awful. I guess it's can be looked at as a good or bad thing. For me, I don't care for it. Oops, sorry. Kick the stand this is on. But like the freaking ending of like you don't even technically get involved with fighting Mehrunes Dagon. Uh that has to be Sean Bean's character. And while it's a cool sequence, it's a cutscene. I think the coolest part that feels like it's kind of a final battle is the part where Sean Bean and you are like forming an army together to fight this one Gate of Oblivion, and it has like a literal time limit on it. Once again, it's not a bad story. Uh, it's just not my favorite of the series. There, I don't know. It just doesn't come across as memorable to me personally. That's just me, but I know a lot of other people really love Oblivion, count it as the best Elder Scrolls. Even who doesn't say one of the Elder Scrolls is the best? That seems to be a thing that's up for debate everywhere. Morrowind's the best. Oblivion's the best. Skyrim's the best. Um, Honestly, it could be any of them. It could be all three, as represented by these guys. Uh, but nonetheless, it's probably my least favorite. I do love the Shivering Isles. There are a few blips even in the Shivering Isles, though. Um, but then again, which the stories aren't completely perfect in all these games. They don't. It's not like they don't have their moments of like dragging or just not being as good to the standards of other parts. So let's move on to Skyrim. Skyrim, I actually like Skyrim surprisingly. I know that's a hot topic, probably. Hot take. Don't worry, I want to save Morrowind for last because I actually want to talk a little bit more about Morrowind. And I'm going to try and make this video a little quicker. It's already 7 minutes. But it's part of the reason I'm not going over every little detail. But I love Skyrim. Like when I think to myself about some of those sequences, like if you hear those sequences on paper, they're probably not as cool when you see them in the game, but they're cool like in your head or when you see them on paper or something. It's so cool to describe the moments. Like for example, everybody makes fun of Alduin being like a terrible villain. I actually like him as a villain. Um, he does have a very simplistic, like he's like son of Akatosh. He's meant to be the world destroyer, bringer of the dragons, and I love that they use something that you actually like some show don't tell, where you get to see Alduin raising a dragon back to life. And that lets you know every time you see a dragon throughout the game, he's responsible for that dragon. So it kind of helps to spread his influence. It's kind of the same thing as like Sephiroth or Sauron in Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, that kind of stuff, where like you feel their presence through the uh, enemies that they send out there to attack and such, as well as other little details here and there. And then I love just describing the battles of Alduin, the final battles. There's two battles. I remember when I originally watched, I loved Straight Up Irish, but he made a mistake of saying the Battle of Alduin, and he just thought of it as one fight, but it's actually two. Maybe because he wasn't really remembering it all that well. But I love that battle because first off, you have to look at an Elder Scroll to find a shout that nobody knows in the current time period. So you essentially go back in time to witness an event, as well as keep in mind looking at Elder Scrolls are like super dangerous and have caused moth monks or whatever to go completely blind. So it's very dangerous to even. It might as well be like the Ark of the Covenant from frickin' Indiana Jones. They're like just very powerful parchments or scrolls, whatever the frick. And the fact that Dragonborn's able to go and see back in time and survive not going freaking completely blind is just badass. And then you have a fight on the equivalent of our real world Mount Everest, but it's the throat of the world against a freaking the destroyer of worlds, basically, Alduin, while you're fighting him alongside Mario Dragon Parthenax, because he's voiced by Charles Martinet. And it's just such a badass thing when I tell people of it, but maybe it's not as badass on paper. And then the next battle sounds just as badass. You have to go through this crazy freaking, probably one of the tougher Draugr dungeons, just so you can teleport to the equivalent of Valhalla, which is Sovngarde. It's basically Norse heaven, Nordic heaven. And you go through this fog that Alduin created, and he's like eating up the souls of Nords there. You even can run into certain characters if you had them killed. Like, I remember I ran into frickin' leader of the Stormcloaks there. I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm terrible with names when I need to talk about him in the moments. And when you get up to that freaking bridge with the giant defending it, and it's just this ribcage bridge, which is just freaking such a cool sight. The entire area is such a cool sight. You'll have to fight this guy just to talk to Nordic gods who were previously Dragonborns, the ones that you saw in the past. And they help you to not only clear the fog that's concealing Alduin, but to battle alongside these demigods slash gods of Valhalla equivalent, Sovngarde, in a final battle with Alduin, the destroyer of the worlds. And it's like, or the world devourer. And it's just, like, how does that not sound super badass? Once again, it probably doesn't look badass, but how does it not freaking sound badass? I love it. Of course, there's training with the Greybeards of strengthening your shout. There's so many iconic like moments too in Skyrim, especially from freaking "You're finally awake," and of course the entire cart ride. Nobody's gonna forget that. It's even become immortalized as a meme. Ton of the lines that the guards say in that are also same with Oblivion, but that's not really like main story stuff. And then there's you can also, depending on if you choose someone in the war, you can also have a moment where you bring the council together to like put the war at a halt so that you can focus on the dragon killing. And then once that's done, you choose a side. You also get to choose if you want to form the blades out of your followers or not. And the only dud in the story I have is Delphine. That is really the only part I don't like in the story. But there's moments that are good in that too. I do like going into like undercover to the Thalmor. It is a fun little bit. There's a character that can potentially die too if you're not careful. It's a fun little bit. I do like it. Learning more about the Thalmor. Yeah, they do a good job with setting up the stories cinematically. They do a good job with that stuff. And there's some famous actors throughout here. Esbern's played by someone, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, sadly. But I remember Christopher Plummer as the frickin' leader of forgetting his name now, though, as the dragon, as one of the Dragonborn Greybeards. But it's just a really good game. The reason I don't like the Delphine part is she is not only annoying, I don't like the fact she wants you to kill Parthenax, though it makes sense. And she's the one that witnesses Alduin raising a dragon from the dead. And then she's like, who's behind this? This must be the Thalmor. We must go undercover. And it's like, bitch, you just saw Alduin raising a dragon from the dead. So if there is a problem with the story, it's freaking attached to some of the things Delphine says. She's not all bad, but those few moments just make her freaking stupid. So yeah, I love the Skyrim story though. It's short, it's brief, but it's cool all the same. And I do like a lot of the like side quest stories where while they're not strong and like fully like go out as big these really long quest lines, they're still very memorable and they have great characters. I think it's because they let you sit with characters more. You get to remember the characters of like the guilds and Daedra Prince quests and stuff a little bit more. But there are really, I think that Oblivion's better with the Daedric Quest items, but only the Thief and Dark Brotherhood is my favorite in Oblivion. I do not like the Mages Guild. While the reward at the end is cool, it is rewarding, I can't remember a goddamn character or scenario, and there are some just really like dragging out parts. I would prefer taking the Mage Guild from frickin' Skyrim over it, or even Morrowind. It just was not a memorable guild with not so because it's throwing you all over the place, just like Morrowind. You're not able to let the characters sit with you and the places and events. And most of the time, you can technically play that whole quest line without using a single bit of magic, except for the worst puzzle in the whole damn thing, which is a freaking dumb one. I remember it pissed off General Sam when he was doing his video on it back in the day. But yeah, I would sometimes prefer the some of the guilds from frickin' even the Fighters Guild compared to the Companions. I remember the Companions. I mean, Ayla, Farkas, even though that's a character from that's in Fallout New Vegas. Just I at least remember it more and I like it more. I can't remember crap from the. I think the only part I remember is when it starts getting to the Blackwood gang or whatever. That's about it. That's about it. See ya. No, man, this video has gone on. We haven't even gotten to Morrowind. Let's get to that quickly. Morrowind. This game, I actually never completed the story when I originally was playing Morrowind. I would fool around mostly when I played Morrowind back in the day because I was a dumb kid, even dumb teen sometimes. When I finally sat down and played through Morrowind's story, took it seriously, got through it, read everything it had, there was something I can see this story like turning off other people because you have to read and I love reading, but there's sadly people who don't so much or really care for that. And when I sat down with that story and got through it, it felt like the most rewarding story of the bunch. It was very long, and it does feel like there's chore moments where you like do this, do that, kind of thing. I mean, what frickin' RPG doesn't do those moments? But it might have felt a little heavy there. But I think when the game started to really click with me was when I had to get each of the what are they called? They're the factions that they're the chiefs and stuff. Tribes. They're the tribes outside of some of the most main areas of Morrowind, where you have to get their elders respect and do like this little quest to get an item for them or do something important for them, and you gain their respect. You also have to gain a respect of one of the houses or get the houses on your side or choose one even. You can also become a priest of the temple. There's also the part I like. I like the side quests, the fact that the quests, especially with the guilds, where you get to a far enough part with the guilds and then they'll eventually be like, you know what, that other guild is competition for us. Why don't you go slaughter all of them? I love that. I love frickin'. You can also screw up the story, of course, killing like Caius Cassidus, which is frickin' hilarious. And then it finally starts, like you start being called the Nerevarine, and you sadly get like a disease at one point too, that you actually go to a character that reoccurs in the Dragonborn DLC of Skyrim to find out if you can cure this, and they really only have like a way to like make it I don't know what the word you would use for it, but make it so it's not a hindrance to your character. So they're living with the disease that's uncurable, but at least it's not that much a hindrance to them throughout the rest of their life, at least from what I've gathered. And it feels so cool to finally being called the Nerevarine and then going to Red Mountain finally. It also is really cool meeting Vivek for the first time, this frickin' guy. It's such a cool moment. Like these moments feel so great when they're built up. And then you finally go to Red Mountain and Dagoth are like, even though there has been voice acting with characters when you walk by them on the streets and stuff, it's the first time there's voice acting with it. Also, Red Mountain's just a terrifying place where you have to find these powerful items to destroy the heart of Lorcan. That's the other thing. I just love the lore of frickin' Morrowind because it is the most connected to the disappearance of the dwarves and why that's so fascinating to people who love the Elder Scrolls series. And when you go, Dagoth's just such, he's got that Sauron kind of evil to him as well, where you can feel his presence, and when people talk about him, it's like you kind of know this guy. When you finally get to him, I actually remember taking a picture of me getting to him for my friend, and it was like, I'm at the end of the game. you know, it was a really cool moment. And then you talk to him, he gives you his freaking motivations and stuff. I love the idea of trying to revive this mechanized dwarf titan, built titan, this thing that originally sent the dwarves to disappear in the first place. And you have to destroy the heart of Lorcan. And when you do, you have to fight through, of course, Dagoth, which was a hard battle, and some minions that are in this big area where the frickin' Titan is. What I did, I love that you can do this in different ways. You can either take on Dagoth or head on, or I used a floating ability. I love the flying ability. Wish it would come back. And I just flew across, making it hard for Dagoth to get to me. And then making sure I didn't get hit by him as well. And then I went behind the heart and tried to destroy it that way, so that like the heart was blocking Dagoth from shooting me. And then I just floated back to the other side and escaped. It was freaking hilarious. But yeah, it was just such a rewarding freaking experience by the end. So I have a hard time because Skyrim also has its moments of just being very rewarding and such. They're pretty good with rewarding experiences, honestly, too. Is just they are very rewarding games. They know how to do the adventuring part as well as the reward stuff, like whenever you run into a chest or treasure or find some cool item on the ground or something in frickin' Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind. It's just but that's where a lot of Bethesda's strong points lie. Probably not so much the story, except when they did Morrowind, which showed they could be like almost Fallout New Vegas level, really good storytelling. Because I would say it's on level with New Vegas with how good it is. And I miss those old styles of game. At the same time, I don't mind what like Skyrim and such bring to the table. I just fear for the next Elder Scrolls. But yeah, if I had to choose specifically between Morrowind and Skyrim, I would probably say Skyrim just because it's at least a little easier to get through. I love the graphical appeal of it, though I do love the look of Morrowind as well. Morrowind's very unique looking. I love its music and such. They're both very hard for me to choose between. Yeah, and I do think that while I can see people's points on the art style being changed for the more Oblivion remake, I do kind of prefer the Oblivion remake. I don't know, I didn't really like the art style of the original Oblivion. Even back then, there's a lot of games that are freaking ugly or older looking that I do not mind. I love how they look, and I don't care for that. But Oblivion and even Fallout 3 were the first games I was like, ugh, this is freaking ugly looking. I can kind of see, I'm kind of warmed up to Fallout 3 and New Vegas though, but I have a hard time trying to warm up to Oblivion. I don't hate it. I just not a fan of the art style, and when I saw the new art style, I was like, I can see people getting pissed, but at the same time, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. It actually gets so, it's like to a point where I almost want to say the Oblivion remake is better than Skyrim. It's that good at times. Because I actually kind of grew into it. But, still, Oblivion is not my favorite of the three games. I think another reason if Skyrim was my favorite is probably also because Morrowind would take a goddamn long time and arduous journey, but it is worth it. But I like to be where it's worth it, if anything. But it is cool to replay the game too, so I could choose between either. I don't know. If you want a definitive answer, though, for this video, Skyrim for me. I love Skyrim. I love talking about its story. Because I haven't even mentioned the Blackreach stuff with that, and I do love some of the lore that comes from Skyrim as well. So, as well as I love that world. That world's so awesome. Both Morrowind and Skyrim come very close together for me. Where a lot of my problems with Oblivion is Oblivion didn't feel clear on what it wanted to be. It didn't feel too fantastical, but it didn't also feel like it was trying to have a specific setting. It kind of felt all over the place, but also not all over the place at the same time somehow. Because it's like, I almost thought it had a Greek kind of setting with the way the knight's armor is and such. And I do like the like the Aelid lore and such, but as well as the Imperial City. But like every time I look at it, I can't remember a single city in that game. The knights don't. It kind of feels like standard medieval as well, mixed with Greek. And then there's times where it's like, what is with the monsters? Like there's very typical kind of generic fantasy monsters, minotaurs. You even got a frickin' spider lady that feels like it's frickin' the spider lady from Dungeons and Dragons. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I'm just remembering that one scene with Venger saying her name, but the name isn't coming to me. But and then there's just a bunch of monsters that look like they came from typical fantasy stuff, and it's just kind of the atmosphere can be good at sometimes, but the dungeons don't help in how freaking repetitive they are. I don't know. I mean, Skyrim does have typical stuff, and it does have the trolls from Oblivion, so I do give credit to Oblivion for the trolls, but I think the trolls are way more fitting in a Nordic setting, as well as I love their designs in the Nordic setting as well. There is some that you could probably say are goofy, like saber cats, but I like the creatures better. They feel more interestingly designed, and I would take a Draugr over a zombie any day, because the zombies just, at this point, with how oversaturated zombies are and stuff, Draugr are just way more interesting. As well as the dungeons are more interesting, in my opinion. If I took Iliad or Draugr, I know they're both seen a lot, but I would take a Draugr dungeon any day. Yeah. But yeah, there's other things too that I could go into. It's just personal preference. Once again, if you love a certain game, if you think Oblivion's the best, that's you. That is definitely you and what you want to say is your favorite. For me, I think Skyrim or Morrowind, it's between the two. They're both really good. Man, I've talked almost 30 minutes again about something. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack and talk about these. And I've missed stuff, so it would have technically gone on longer. But nonetheless, I'm going to stop here. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite story of an Elder Scrolls game is, and I will see you next time. And hopefully, I want to play some more Morrowind for the channel sometime, too. I got that downloaded. I got to play it sometime more. I only did like 1 or 2 videos on it, and that was it. But yeah, I'll see you next time. You have an awesome day. Bye, Jimmy's mom.